Welcome into Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, we talk about a very interesting media availability for Dave Dombrowski and a couple interesting quotes that, one goes kind of directly against the way I thought the Philadelphia Phillies were going. We'll break it all down on today's episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I am your host, Connor Thomas. Been talking Phils baseball for years on 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio. Just got done on TV, actually, over on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Do the same thing over there for them. And happy to be here with you as your host of Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Now, we did an episode already about Rob Thompson's most recent media availability and some quotes that he had with the assembled press and everyone asking him questions there, all the Philadelphia Phillies beat reporters and everything like that, and some interesting stuff from the manager. And then there's the man above the manager, who is Dave Dombrowski, the president of baseball operations. And Dave Dombrowski went on a radio station that I will not name. I think you can figure out who I'm talking about from that. Yes, a competitor, we'll just call them. And he gave an interview and talked very in depth about a couple things with the Philadelphia Phillies. I want to break down some of the answers that he gave and some of the points that he brought up, some things that I kind of already had a feeling were the case, some things that go directly against how I thought the Philadelphia Phillies were going to handle things. And we're going to start with that first one there because I've told you, the Philadelphia Phillies, their track record says we're very careful with young arms. We're not going to bring guys up too soon. We're going to be very slow and deliberate about how we progress prospects, pitching prospects, that is, because you want to make sure that you're taking care of their arm as much as possible. In today's day and age, well, you're looking at guys get Tommy John more often. You're looking at guys have shoulder and elbow issues more often. And that, or maybe they don't have the issues more often. I don't have the exact numbers on that, but you're definitely more sensitive as an organization to protecting your not even high profile players in general, pitchers in general, from having to go through that process of tearing a rotator cuff, tearing a labrum, tearing your UCL, and needing that Tommy John surgery, the dreaded Tommy John surgery that costs you a year of development and everything like that. So with that in mind, and the Phillies being an organization that is super conscious of that, I've been telling you, I would have Andrew Painter up on this team early. I don't think the Philadelphia Phillies will do it. Well, Dave Dombrowski said this during his interview, that Andrew Painter has a very realistic chance of making the team coming out of spring training. Yes, that's 19-year-old Andrew Painter. He was just on MLB Pipeline's most recent prospects list, named the top right-handed pitching prospect in all of baseball. So, hey, talent-wise, it makes sense, right? But I thought the Philadelphia Phillies were going to be more cautious with Andrew Painter. Now, that's not a guarantee he's going to be on the opening day roster. And some things still have to go his way, and he's got to have a good spring. He's got to show he's ready. At 19, there's a very real chance that he ends up not a part of this team to start the year. But being that he's the top prospect at his position, there's also a very real chance, and Dave Dombrowski said it himself, a very realistic chance that he's on this team, the Major League team, the Philadelphia Phillies, not Lehigh Valley, not Reading, not Jersey Shore, the big ball club coming out of spring training, opening day roster. And that is music to my ears. If he's your fifth starter on opening day, how exciting is that? Like, this team's already going to be exciting. Bringing in Trey Turner, it gives you juice. Coming off a World Series appearance in an NL pennant, juice. Nick Castellanos bounce back year, juice. Kyle Schwarber, your defending home run champion in the National League, juice. Rhys Hoskins, contract year Rhys Hoskins, trying to make all the money he can, juice. JT Realmuto, best catcher in baseball, first team All MLB catcher, juice. Brandon Marsh, a full-time center fielder now when you trade Matt Vierling to get Gregory Soto in here, adds juice to the fan base and the buzz around this team and everything, not to mention the retooled bullpen with Gregory Soto and Greg Kimbrell in there, and Sir Anthony Dominguez and Jose Alvarado is dangerous as ever. This team is already exciting. But you throw in a 19-year-old phenomenal pitcher to the mix that could be the face of this franchise. Now, he won't be the face of the franchise because Bryce Harper exists. And Trey Turner you now have for the next decade plus. But still, he's going to be hopefully a mainstay on this team for a long, long time. It's just another interesting point. The Phillies are one of the more interesting teams in baseball because they're good, talented, great manager, aggressive GM. They make moves, or aggressive president of baseball operations, I should say. I'm sure the GM, Sam Fold, is aggressive as well, but they make interesting moves. They don't rest on their laurels. They win games. They're a talented team. They have exciting players with personality. They have a great manager. It's a very, very, very fun team to be following right now. And I'm blessed to be hosting Locked On Phillies as opposed to some counterpart teams that just don't ever have this. So don't take it for granted what Dave Dombrowski does. And one of them looks like it could be getting ready to call up would it even count as a call-up? I know call-ups are during the season. If you make the roster out of spring training, I guess it's a call-up, but it's more said they just make the team. The verbiage doesn't matter. The fact that Andrew Painter has a real chance to make the team says they're looking at him for that fifth spot in the rotation. I don't know what that means for Bailey Falter. I'd imagine Bailey Falter doesn't end up in Lehigh, though. He's shown you enough at the major league level, so there's another lefty in your pen if Andrew Painter's on the major league team to start. So that helps make your bullpen even better. You're starting to build that arsenal of arms that you saw with the Houston Astros, that you saw with the Atlanta Braves, that you see from these really elite year in and year out teams. Yeah, that's what the Philadelphia Phillies are putting together. And if Andrew Painter's good enough to make the major league roster out of camp, just another check mark for the Philadelphia Phillies being even better. Now, some other stuff that we got into, and we're going to get more into it next segment as well, talking deeper about some Dave Dombrowski stuff. He also said that Bryce Harper's rehab has gone well. He's going to start swinging a bat around the end of March was the time frame that Dombrowski gave. Also say he should be back in the lineup right around the All-Star game. So that fits with the original time frame that the Philadelphia Phillies gave. Also, I got to give some credit out. Of course, Alex Coffey tweets a bunch about the Philadelphia Phillies. She covers them for the Inquirer. I'm reading some of her tweets or paraphrasing some of her tweets. Tim Kelly for Phillies Nation. Destiny Legardo, also Phillies Nation. Just putting out some good stuff on Twitter. So I want to give credit where credit's due, where I'm not that the information was from an interview with them, but if they tweet it out, I'm using them as kind of a middleman. So I appreciate that. But Dave Dombrowski says pretty much what we've heard this whole time. Bryce Harper still on the time frame that they gave us. That's a good sign. No setback is good. You're not expecting, because you're pretty conservative with your estimate. So you don't want to have a setback. The right way to be, rather, for an organization is be conservative with an injury estimate, especially a Tommy John surgery recovery. So, yeah, that's a good sign that nothing seems to have changed with Bryce Harper. Maybe he'll be back even sooner than that. But as long as he's not back later, the Philadelphia Phillies can hold on until the All-Star break. They're talented enough. They're absolutely talented enough. And that's this year. But part of what I talked about when Dave Dombrowski got his most recent contract extension is that, yeah, that's an important contract extension because he has some big decisions coming up contract-wise, not for himself, but for players on the team. And coming up this next segment, we're going to talk about what he's discussed with a couple of big-time players' futures, a couple of players that have contracts that are coming up soon, whether or not to re-sign, hey, your first baseman and one of your aces. Well, they're big questions. And the president of baseball operations, well, he did his best to answer them at the given time. And we'll break down what exactly he said as we continue Locked On Phillies coming up. All right, let's get into the NFL playoffs. FanDuel Sportsbook is awesome. And here's what you want to do. With the NFL playoffs being here, we're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number one sportsbook in America. FanDuel, I already told you. If you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. I talk about FanDuel all the time over on 97.5 The Fanatic. They're my sportsbook that I've always used. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers, you can join today. Get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Got a promo code now, so go ahead and use that. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. They're awesome. You can bet like the over on a certain player's like passing yards in a game, and someone anytime touchdown score, and the over on receiving yards for another player, and the total points in the game, and put it all together, same game parlay. You see people tweet it all out all the time. I know you do. The screenshot of their FanDuel same game parlay with like thousands of dollars of winning and everything. And you're like, man, why can't I be them? You can. FanDuel Sportsbook is awesome. It's all on an app, safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus in select states. First online real money wager only. Bonus issues, non-withdrawable free bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, let's get back to Locked On Phillies. All right, so one of the other things that Dave Dombrowski talked about in his interview with a radio station that I'm still not naming is the future of two stars on the team right now, Aaron Nola and Rhys Hoskins, both players with contracts coming up soon that you got to take care of. Of course, Dave Dombrowski, one of the things he said was you'd like to re-sign both of them, because what is he going to say? What is he not going to give credit to his players or put faith in his players who are currently on the team? So we'll start with what he said about Aaron Nola. And the quote is in reference to, so I've been talking all day. I had a long day over at the station with TV and everything, basically like a 14-hour day. So I'm going on hour like 15 of talking. So bear with me if I lose my words for a little bit here. But in reference to re-signing Aaron Nola, Dombrowski said it's something that we'd like to do. We want Aaron to be in the organization for a long time. There's no question about that. And he also said it's never easy to be able to get done, but we'd love to keep Aaron in our organization for a long time. That's really a non-answer, because what is he going to say? No, we don't want Aaron Nola, a guy who's been in a Cy Young conversation before, a guy who's always near the top of the league in a lot of important pitching stats, a guy that was a big part of your late season push for the playoffs. And while he struggled in his last couple starts in the playoffs, he was really good down the stretch of the regular season, and he's got that experience now. So what, you expect Dave Dombrowski to say, nah, we don't need Aaron Nola, he can walk? Like, no, they obviously want him back. The question is, how much money is he going to command? Are they going to be willing to pay it? It's a non-answer from Dombrowski, but it's something that he's clearly giving thought to. And so the previous contract for Aaron Nola, who's now 29 years of age, 4 years, $45 million. It was an extension off of his rookie deal. And since then, he's been really one of the most durable pitchers out there. Like, he's where Zach Wheeler is on and off the mound sometimes, and he does have to deal with a little bit of injury. Super talented, but every once in a while, Zach Wheeler will have some ailment that'll have him out for 2-3 weeks. Listen, Nola's a workhorse. And say what you want about his consistency in past years. This past year, I think it was really good. But in years before that, like 19, 20, and 21, guy's always available. Availability is important, especially with pitchers, when we talked about in the first segment, being careful with Andrew Painter's arm. So, yeah, you want Nola back. You absolutely want Nola back. I think it's more likely that Aaron Nola stays with the organization than it is that this next guy is, Rhys Hoskins. So Dombrowski also talked about 29-year-old Rhys Hoskins, same age there as Aaron Nola. And he said he expects him to be the team's starting first baseman in his final year of arbitration. But from there, who knows what's going to happen? Here's the quote. Beyond this season, we'll end up seeing what happens. He does not have an agent that usually likes to sign contracts before somebody becomes a free agent, talking about Scott Boras, who the Phillies are very familiar with. So I understand that situation, but I look forward to Rhys being a part of our ball club all year long. That, to me, sounds like Hoskins is gone. That, to me, says, like, when you talk about Aaron Nola, it's like, I want you to be a part of our organization for a long time. Rhys Hoskins, the quote is, hey, I'm glad he's going to be here all year. That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence for Rhys Hoskins being back on the team in 2024. Yeah, number 17 jerseys. might be a little bit discounted after that quote from Dave Dombrowski. And really, this year's going to determine a lot, right? Because remember, baseball is no salary cap. The Phillies are already paying in the luxury tax. They threw money at Trey Turner. Does Rhys Hoskins want to be here? I really, really firmly believe that his preferred destination is going to be Philadelphia when it comes to free agency. He wants to be here. The question is, will the Phillies offer him a contract that he's willing to take? No salary cap, so there's nothing restricting you from doing that besides the palatability, if I'll say, your ability to stomach the amount that you'd have to pay a player like Rhys Hoskins. It's really up to him. If this guy comes out and he's as big of a part of your playoff run or the team as he was this past year, which for all of the faults with his defense, Rhys Hoskins was a huge part of the team this last year, especially in the playoffs. He got really, really, really hot when it mattered. You do not make it to the World Series without Rhys Hoskins. You don't. I know he wasn't great defensively all year long. Bottom line is he's so good offensively when he gets hot. And last year he got hot in the postseason, and it was incredible to watch. That Braves series, he was so good. Probably the best player in that series as far as a position player is concerned was Rhys Hoskins. So you look at that and say, if he does that again this year, maybe the Phillies just straight up shell out. And they say, hey, man, we got to pay this guy. He's really good. He wants to be here. I don't know if he'll cut a hometown discount, but he'll come to the table and be willing to listen to our offer. Let's pay the man. He's earned it. We'll go further into the luxury tax. We got to compete with Steve Cohen anyway. You're going to make a bunch of money from another deep playoff run, hopefully. And you'll say, hey, okay, well, we're not putting a new scoreboard up this offseason. Our new scoreboard money, that goes to Rhys Hoskins. That would be the situation for him being back. But Dave Dombrowski's quote says that's much less of a sure thing. Again, I will read you the quote one more time. Beyond the season, we'll end up seeing what happens. He does not have an agent that usually likes to sign contracts before somebody becomes a free agent, so I understand the situation, but I look forward to Rhys being a part of our ball club all year long. Much less committal to wanting him here long-term than he was with Aaron Nola, which a quote about Aaron Nola said, we'd love to keep Aaron in our organization for a long time. So interesting words there from Dave Dombrowski, and that does really matter. And one other thing that Dombrowski said is we have to remember this. Some people can't play in Philadelphia. Or sorry, this is Boris. I apologize. Scott Boras said we have to remember that some people can't play in Philadelphia. And his point is that Rhys Hoskins has the ability to play in major markets. So that points to Boras wanting Rhys Hoskins here and wanting him to re-sign. And I think that's smart by Scott Boras because he knows that there's a lot of owners in baseball. There's a huge spending gap in Major League Baseball. Huge. Bunch of teams that spend no money and a choice few teams that spend all the money. Teams like the Mets, teams like the Yankees, teams like the Dodgers, teams like the Braves, teams like the Phillies. But they're in the minority. Most teams in Major League Baseball do not shell out for top players, or they get one, and then they try and get close to the playoffs and convince their fan base that they're good. It's very select few teams that actually go into the luxury tax and have a big enough market that they can afford to do that and actually compete at the highest level. So, yeah, that's why Scott Boras wants Rhys Hoskins here, because there's an owner that will be willing to pay enough money that he'll get the money he deserves. Rhys Hoskins, and I guess I'm also talking about Scott Boras, who will get a percentage of that. But, again, the quotes from Dave Dombrowski on those two players, it seems like he's a lot more confident that Aaron Nola will be able to be locked up long-term here in Philadelphia than he is that Rhys Hoskins will be back. So we'll see. 2023 is going to be an interesting year in production out of those players. And I wouldn't hold your breath that a Rhys Hoskins extension is coming during the season. I think that's prudent because you're still trying to figure out what he is defensively, if he can make that jump, if you can stomach him being streaky, what this team looks like with Trey Turner, and when Bryce Harper comes back healthy. But interesting words there from Dave Dombrowski when it comes to Rhys Hoskins and Aaron Nola. Certainly something to monitor. Coming up next, we're going to have a little fun. We're going to talk about something that happened at a different Philadelphia sporting event, but involving a couple of Philadelphia players. And I'm going to put together a little Mount Rushmore for you. We'll discuss coming up next, and it deals with one of my favorite topics, beer. We'll talk about it on Locked On Phillies. All right, so Rob Thompson, Dalton Guthrie, and my man Brandon Marsh, the caveman, the Duck Dynasty guy. He was, the three of them, the trio, was at a Flyers game about a week ago. They were seeing the Flyers game. They were showing up on the Jumbotron. And Rob Thompson's sitting there. Seems like he's having a good time. What? By the way, what an eclectic group. Rob Thompson, Dalton Guthrie, and Brandon Marsh. I guess it was just like outfielders day at the Flyers game with the manager. I don't know. Now, we've had a chance to, me and some of the folks over at 97.5 run into Rob Thompson at some Flyers games. He is a Canadian. He loves his ice hockey. So it totally makes sense that he's there. But yeah, they were hanging out. They were in a suite together, sitting there, and the camera goes on him. And of course, what happens? What happens when you see any professional athlete at a different sporting event when they're taking it in, not playing in it? You got to go with the beer chug, right? Normally it's an offensive lineman, but Brandon Marsh is a everyman, salt of the earth, got the big beard. He's basically the offensive lineman of this Philadelphia Phillies team. Well, one of them. So he goes ahead and he hammers the beer, chugs it, and waves their fist pumps to the camera and everything like that. And classic, but it's fun to see players show their personality like that. And it's not surprising at all coming from Brandon Marsh. And it got me thinking, who would be your Mount Rushmore of beer chuggers on this current Philadelphia Phillies team? So I'm going to put mine together right now, live here on Locked On Phillies. Well, you're watching it recorded, but I'm doing this live. I don't have this predetermined. Off the top of my head, I think Brandon Marsh has got to be on the list. And also, I have a little bit of inside information here because I was in the Philadelphia Phillies celebration in the clubhouse after they won the NLDS against the Braves. So I watched them throw beers all over each other. I know who seems to be more the party animals and who aren't. So with that in mind and a little insider trading, Brandon Marsh 100% on that list. If I had $1 for every time I watch that guy in the champagne celebration, take Budweiser's and just absolutely like pour them all over his face and beard, dude gets down. Guy can booze. He's on the Mount Rushmore. He's not the easiest pick, though. The easiest pick is the big man. Kyle Schwarber's 100% on there. That dude is just a beer league softball player in a Major League Baseball player's occupation. He would be, I could play Sunday softball with that guy, no problem. He looks like half the guys in my league. The only difference is he's the best home run hitter in the National League right now. An absolute tank of a human being, loves his beer, salt of the earth guy as well. That's a guy that's on the Mount Rushmore chugging beers on this Philadelphia Phillies team. Bit of a sneaky one here. I'm putting Alec Boehm on the Mount Rushmore too. Man gets down. Like, you saw him with a beer box on his head during one of the celebrations in the playoffs. A tall guy in actually incredible shape. Seeing him in the locker room, that man is shredded. Like, shredded. If you ever see him with his shirt off, has like a 12-pack. He looks like when you see the Jesus on the cross sculptures and you're like, there's no way Jesus was that ripped. Like, that is what Alec Boehm looks like, especially because he's got the hair and everything too. But the man can chug beers. I'm putting him on there. So there's 3 right now. And the 4th one's interesting. I can't go Bryce, doesn't really drink. JT doesn't really get down like that. Rhys is also more. These are like the slightly older guys. They don't, not that they're old, but like they don't like booze like the younger guys. I'm trying to think. Veerling and Maton would have given it a run, but they're both in Detroit now, getting traded for Gregory Soto. As far as other guys, Gene Segura was ripping a cigar half the time in there, but it didn't seem like drinking all that much. I'm trying to see if there's any pitchers that would make it, and not really. The pitchers on the Phillies are really low-key, all of them. Low-key guys. The bullpen guys are a little bit more fiery, but Zach Wheeler's quiet. Aaron Nola's quiet. Ranger Suarez is quiet. I'll tell you who's going to be the other guy on the drinking Mount Rushmore for the Philadelphia Phillies. It's going to have to be Bryson Stott. The young guy was partying, man. You see him pouring water on people. He's a bit of a – he's got a prankster personality a little bit. Likes to obviously have fun. And he was enjoying those celebrations as much as a lot of the guys. More than most, actually. So, yeah, that's my Phillies Mount Rushmore of chugging a beer. Bryson Stott, Alec Boehm, Kyle Schwarber, and Brandon Marsh. Those are your partiers on the Philadelphia Phillies team, in my personal opinion. But is there someone obvious that I missed? Go ahead and let me know in the comments of the video of who you'd put on your Mount Rushmore of Philadelphia Phillies beer chuggers. That's all for today's Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Lindsey Crosby does a great job on MLB Prospects. he's probably going to have some interesting stuff on Andrew Painter as we draw closer to the Major League season. I'll have to jump on a crossover with Lindsay and talk about Painter and his chances to make the Major League roster on opening day. But check it out. His work on MLB Prospect, Locked On MLB Prospects, I should say, is available on YouTube, Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts. So check out Lindsay's great work. Just like you can check out my work here on Locked On Phillies, wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, Odyssey app, all great stuff. Thank you for rating, reviewing, subscribing. We're drawing closer to 900 subscribers, but the goal is 1,000 plus before the season starts, and we can get there easy. We got plenty of time, but go ahead, and that shouldn't mean you can waste time. No, subscribe to Locked On Phillies right now. Hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. Takes a millisecond of your time. You get all the information you need right away. You know when new videos get posted, and it helps me out significantly, so I really appreciate it. That's all for today's Locked On Phillies, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.